there, good morning to you and welcome to Still Up with 6 on this Thursday morning. We are almost to the weekend. We've got a lot to cover this morning, but first we do want to say good morning to Chris joining us from home. Hey there, Chris.
Hey there, good morning to you, Heidi. Yeah, almost to the end of another week, almost to the end of another month. So happy Thursday to everyone joining us right now. Certainly a lot to get to this morning. Today is kind of the end of one of the phases of what we've been going through in the beginning of kind of a new phase. So it will be interesting to see the changes and how that will take effect here in the Lone Star State. If you want to give people a rundown of what's going on.
So today is the final day for the president's guidelines for social distancing to be in place. Those will be lifted, as well as Texas's stay-at-home order will be lifted come midnight. So those are the two big changes happening on a nation level and here in Texas. So tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day in phase one of reopening the state of Texas. As we've told you guys all week long, that retail shops, malls, among many other things, restaurants plan to reopen their doors if they choose to, but they do have to open at 25% capacity only.
Yeah, so we do want to remind people that this comes with a number of different exclusions, a number of different caveats with it, because this is not just, well, we're back to it, back to normal, 25% capacity right now. Some restaurants, you know, there's plenty of local restaurants across Central Texas right now that are choosing not to reopen. I know Grand Avenue Theater in Belton, Texas is saying that they're just not going to until they can get to 50% capacity, which they're hoping will come on May 15th when the next phase of this plan is set to be put in place. Now, other restaurants saying that their to-go model is going to be working for them right now, and they're not going to allow customers inside, but there will be retail stores and there will be restaurants that will be reopening their doors. And we want to remind people that just because social distancing guidelines have been lifted and just because stay-at-home orders have expired, you should still practice social distancing. You should still practice those health and sanitation techniques that we have been hammering home for the last couple of months.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the places that do plan to open, including the Richland Mall. They do plan to open their doors. All their employees will have face masks on if they are in the common areas of the mall, so keep that in mind. But again, 25% capacity is hard to make sure you're following, and that's why a lot of restaurants, like I know Fire Street Pizza, I'm a big fan of them, they plan to keep their doors closed and only do carry-out orders only, just because they are a place where people like to go in groups because they've got a bar, they've got live music, they've got games, and it's really just hard for them to turn people away because they have to follow the 25% capacity limit in order there from Governor Greg Abbott.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these restaurants are social sites, right? So that's why so many of them are choosing not to completely open up again and still stick with this to-go model. But it certainly will be an interesting development, and we'll have to see how people handle it. Some people pointed out this morning on Texas Today, that people are kind of doing what they please anyways right now. We've seen protests across the country. We've seen people out and about. We've had multiple complaints from viewers as well as observations from ourselves that people in grocery stores often are not practicing the guidelines that have been set down by health officials. So whether or not there's going to be major changes, it remains to be seen. Tomorrow will be kind of the day that we'll see if there are huge crowds out in retail stores, if there are people that are lining up to get into restaurants. That remains to be seen right now, but certainly it will be interesting to see as that develops, and we'll keep monitoring that to see how people are handling this new phase here in the Lone Star State and certainly across the nation as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned, you know, people on our comments on our Facebook page saying people aren't even following the guidelines and they are still in place. And it's true, a lot of people were not following the stay-at-home orders. We're not following the cover your face and your nose through any sort of bandana, mask, anything you have at stores during the peak of this pandemic. So a lot of people saying, why would they do that now? But again, we need to, like you said, Chris, we need to find a way to protect ourselves and protect others, even if those guidelines are lifted and the stay-at-home orders are expired.
Yeah, so let's get to Verify on this Thursday morning. It's something that we teased there in the caption of our Facebook Live, at least. A claim going around that people had some concerns about, understandably, was that your air conditioning might be helping spread COVID-19. Now, this all stems back from a study coming out of China where in a restaurant, researchers surmised that the air conditioning unit might have helped spread COVID-19 to a number of different patrons at the restaurant. But what our experts point out is this is just one study, one very, very limited study that wasn't very big in its scope. And right now, the concern that air conditioning might spread COVID-19 is low, and the risk is absolutely low. So if people are out there saying, they're turning off their AC because they're worried it's going to spread COVID-19, if they're not going to restaurants because they're worried the air conditioner would spread COVID-19, we want to remind you that human-to-human transmission remains the dangerous thing right now. It is not going to be the air conditioning. It is not going to be anything else other than human-to-human transmission that should be the focal point for risk factors. So we verified this morning that air conditioning is not likely to spread COVID-19. That is just one study out of China that was very, very limited in scope.
So it's a very, very, very low risk, very unlikely.
Yeah, absolutely. Rhonda asking a question about the reopening. So the malls open today. Just joined what about the DMV? The malls will reopen tomorrow, I believe, right, Heidi? I think that today is the last day of the order, and so tomorrow the Richland Mall will be reopening, as well as malls, certainly probably across the state as well.
Yeah, now a lot of people are asking about nail salons, hair salons, barber shops, gyms. Those are all going to remain closed until at least mid-May. So if you were hoping to go get your nails done tomorrow or possibly get a haircut, you won't be able to do that. It is just going to be retail shops that are opening tomorrow, as well as restaurants. Bars will remain closed. So if you have a favorite restaurant that has a bar, that will be open, but if it's a separate bar, just a bar without any food and any other things, it will be closed. So keep that in mind as well. And this is just phase one, and I think the governor is going to wait and see to see what all happens from opening these places up. For the first step, of course, it has to be at 25% capacity only, and that's something that each restaurant, each store will have to regulate on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heidi, while we have a little over 100 people here joining us, I know that there's been so many questions, and I want to just repeat this from yesterday because we might not have had the same amount of people joining us or viewing. A lot of questions have came to me and have came to our Facebook page, and a lot of questions have been posted online about your payment status not available on the IRS website. So here's a little tip that I can give you if you're receiving those types of error messages, whether it be you can't get in, whether it be your information is denied, whether it says it's not available. What I'm hearing, and again, I want to say that I haven't independently verified this, but we're hearing this from national news outlets as well as people who have tried this and said it worked. If you're getting that message, that payment status not available message, what you should be doing is try entering your information in all capitalized letters. What we're hearing from people, what I'm hearing from people, is that when they put their information in all capitalized letters, they were getting their information accepted. So I'm not saying this is a guaranteed, authenticated way to make sure that you don't get those error messages, but what it has been doing is working for a number of people across the country, and we're seeing national news outlets pick up on it as well. So if you are getting that message, all capital letters, that means your address, your information, everything in capital letters, and see if that works. Get back to me. If it does work for you, we can start to really look into it if it's an official way, an official method with the IRS, but I know that so many people have had that, and I really haven't had a good answer for people as to why they're getting those messages, but definitely try the all caps method. It could be really effective and useful for you.
That is a great tip, because I know that last week we were receiving a lot of people saying they can't get the information. The website's telling them it's unavailable, so maybe that is the little hack and trick that you need. Jack is saying people have capacity to social distance on their own and don't need the government to tell them. It's that simple. So Jack is weighing in saying that people don't even need to have certain guidelines in place. The president doesn't need to extend his social distancing guidelines in order for people to follow that. It's just common sense, especially as we continue to navigate through this pandemic and deal with this pandemic and hopefully beat and get out on top from this pandemic, to just remain socially distant and cover your face if you can. I think it's important that we continue to practice this even as this pandemic passes, because we don't want a second wave of cases.
Yeah, well, Texas, Heidi, really, if you think about it, is kind of on the forefront of this for lack of a better word, experiment on how this is going to work out. One of the very first states to start to reopen, one of the very first states to lift those stay-at-home orders. So we're kind of the guinea pig in terms of are people going to be trusted to continue to social distance? Are people going to be trusted to attend businesses and retail stores in a responsible way and not cause a second spike in cases? We don't have a definitive answer right now. That won't become clear until the next couple of weeks if we see another spike in cases in the next couple of months. But certainly we are one of the very first states, and a lot of different states will be looking to Texas to see what happens here.
Yeah, I think California as well as Florida will be looking, New York will be looking to see how it all plays out here in Texas. And I think we all have to do our part to remain socially distant and make sure that we can prove that we can get through this as a whole, as a state, and make sure that the nation could be able to follow us as well. I want to talk about Bell County because they're holding a press conference today. That's going to be a virtual press conference at 11 o'clock. They're expected to update us. Of course, this comes a day after they reported 9 new cases in the county. They now have 174 cases in Bell County. So if you live in the area, you're interested to learn more about what health officials and city officials are doing to combat COVID-19 and their response to that virus, you can tune in. We'll have that streaming on our website and on our app, and download that if you don't have that. Again, that's at 11 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a high interest in that, Heidi. You know, we've had a number of counties across Central Texas that just last week saw no new cases coming into the week, and now we're starting to see a number of new cases popping up. So there will be some heightened interest in that right now. I think that we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what the information comes out.
And Sandy's asking.
Can I say something from Sandy?
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It says the headline shows federal government is expiring the social distancing. I thought just the shelter in place expired. Okay, so the stay-at-home orders here in Texas are set to expire. What the federal government is doing is letting the social distancing guidelines expire. So that's the difference there, Sandy. That's give you a little bit of clarification. So here in Texas, the governor, Greg Abbott, is expiring stay-at-home orders, while the federal government and the president is expiring social distancing guidelines, if that helps out.
And then another comment from Sherry coming in. How in the world can we release social distancing, but I can't open my business as a salon owner? That's a good question, and it goes back to federal versus state. Of course, the governor is the one who's deciding what is set to reopen come Friday and come mid-May versus the president saying that he is lifting the social distancing guidelines. So it's two different scales, two different set of rules here, and that's why, Sherry, you can't open your salon at this time. But hopefully come mid-May, you'll be able to reopen and your business will boom again.
Yeah, absolutely. And our thoughts are with anyone who has been affected by this. And we know there's a lot of small business owners out there that are really frustrated. Hopefully that we don't see a second spike in cases, and hopefully we can get to reopening quickly and safely. That remains to be seen. We'll continue to monitor this, but we do have to step away here on Still Up with 6. We want to thank all of you for joining us, both here and on Texas today. We know that there's a lot of questions, and we hope that we're providing some answers. We appreciate all of you. We hope you stay safe, and we're going to see you tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be a big day, so get your questions ready if you have any, and we'll see you guys on Texas Today as well as Still Up with 6.